The data from the MAPS assessment will be used as correlational data to compare to the interview about teacher perceptions and the survey about current practices to assess if there's areas of growth. So data was collected and analyzed. I will start with sharing the data about the interview about teacher perceptions of the barriers that ELLs face in the classroom. The first question was, what cultural barriers do ELLs face in your classroom? The second question was, what language barriers do ELLs face in your classroom? And I'm just pausing to give a chance to look at some of the answers. The third question was, what social emotional barriers do ELLs face in your classroom? Next was, what barriers do ELLs face on standardized testing? And last was, what other barriers do ELLs face in your classroom? So upon analyzing the interview, trends were looked for basically based on common answers or similar ideas. So there are many instructional barriers that ELLs face. Here are the most common answers. Curriculum is not inclusive and biased toward the majority white culture in the US. Students do not have background knowledge to connect to the curriculum, and students have difficulty reading the directions. ELL's reading level is affected by their language learning, which in turn affects their ability not only in reading, but also in math because of the amount of word problems. ELLs need more assistance with grammar, academic language, and vocabulary. Standardized tests are created for English-speaking students and typically do not have multicultural environments. And because of the testing environment and biases, ELLs are often overqualified for special education services or read plans based on the barriers of standardized testing. So that covered the instructional barriers, but there was also common cultural barriers listed by many teachers. The culture of ELLs, including holidays, customs, food, and social norms, is often not known or understood by teachers and other students. There are limits incorporating ELL's home language and culture because teachers are not bilingual or do not share the same culture. And then communication with families of ELLs is not as frequent or authentic because it requires translation assistance. So we covered instructional and cultural barriers. There was also many social and emotional barriers listed by teachers. So they said that many students do not feel understood by their peers and teachers, and this is often because of the cultural differences. ELLs do not advocate for themselves because they are embarrassed or they need help. They are embarrassed that they need help, or they are embarrassed that their culture is different. Many ELLs feel exhausted from code switching and translating between languages all day, and the social norms differ between cultures. So this can result in students talking out of turn or talking louder because of how their norms are at home. And some students do not understand how to have social interactions with peers, and so they struggle to connect with the peers in their classroom. The next data collected was the survey about teachers' current instructional practices for ELLs and how they currently create a safe classroom culture with ELLs. So this shows the questions were asked by content area. So the purpose of the first part of this survey was to examine if teachers are stronger at instructing in certain content areas than others. And the questions are all based on the instructionally best practices from the literature review. So each question asks about a different best practice. So this question was about a hook,